Just over a month ago, you might have seen my video of mega unboxing, 5,000 US dollar worth of item, as you can see here. And at least half of them are from NF Audio. And again, I'd like to say my thanks and gratitude to NF Audio for sending me all the stuff. And it took me quite a while to play around with some of the item from NF Audio. And only today would be able to do some review on this flagship IEM from them, which is NE4 here. Okay, and this NE4 being a flagship, it also carries the price of a flagship, which is at 749 US dollar, available in HiFiGo, as you can see here. And now let's just not waste too much time. I will not be talking too much about the contents and the unboxing of this because obviously I have done the unboxing in that video, which I mentioned earlier on. But I do want to touch a bit more on some of the important element when it comes to what you're going to get inside this box. Okay, as already noted, the IEM itself, of course, and then the cable, which comes only in 3.5 mm single-ended termination, and this collection of silicone tips here, which are like, there's a few of them, atmosphere ear tips and balance ear tip. What you're going to find inside this NE4 is a combination of 4 balance armature, which is Knowles balance armature, very popular. And let's just quickly have a look, okay? The most important thing is that perhaps these things here, these small things which I am holding in my hand, okay? See that? Okay. By the way, don't pay attention too much, okay? Because Geoff is standing at the front there, you might see his tail. You're gonna also get this tool here, which make it easy for you to unscrew the faceplate like that, okay? And then you just need to carefully slide it out and slide it in order to change the faceplate. Now, okay, looking at the faceplate itself, okay, I will not pretend that I know what's inside there, but it does appear to me that it offers different level of sound tuning, which means that it's starting with the frequency response itself, anywhere from 20,000 kilohertz to 22,000 kilohertz and all the way to 30,000 kilohertz. That's quite high. To be honest with you, I don't think it matters much how far the frequency extend, because at least to me, okay, at my age, I think I would only be hearing somewhere up to 16K, not even anywhere near 20K. So even the most resolving IEM which I own here at the back here, Atimotic ER4SR here, Knowles balance amateur as well, only offer up to 18,000. So this thing is already kind of like way over 18,000 at 20,000 kilohertz. And perhaps if you are like, having sensitivity like a dolphin or a whale or even, dog kind of ability to hear audio, you might be able to hear beyond 20K. Regardless of which faceplate, we are looking at a very sensitive IEM here, which means that they are very easy to drive. And true indeed, I have tried it with my phone here. Super easy to drive, no issue at all, okay? Physically, you would notice here, this thing is entirely made of metal, okay? The way I look at it, the front here kind of a bit lavish, luxurious, and at the back here seems to me like a CNC machine aluminum alloy, and it is definitely thick looking. So perhaps there's some sort of, mechanism inside to combine all of that 4 balance armature, and then you're going to have this faceplate, which will allow different kind of, tuning. So you can imagine that in order to cram in all that technology into this singular assembly, it ended up being very thick. But how comfortable it is, does it, bother you, anybody who's, have small ear perhaps? Then I might just say this. Let's just compare it quickly with another flagship from FIO, which is FA19, which I reviewed recently. I can immediately tell you that both of them are equally thick. Okay, I might even say that perhaps NE4 does appear a bit more thicker, just perhaps 1 mm thicker. Okay, and dimension wise, they are pretty much similar. And also, I think because this NE4 is entirely made of metal, it is also slightly heavier than this already heavy FA19. When we talk about audio gear, there's so many variation of purpose, okay, in the market nowadays, for whichever purpose or type of usage applicable. And To my knowledge, what I have learned so far, NF audio seems to focus a bit more on professional audio. So what does it mean? How does it differ from, let's say, audiophile? You know, that group of people who seems to be never happy with any kind of audio gear in order to enjoy their music? Or how does it differ from normal consumer who seems to be just very happy for as long as they can enjoy any music with any audio gears? So NE4 in this example is a prime example of professional audio gear. Hence, you're going to find these three different sort of tuning faceplate to offer three different type of sound. As noted earlier, right? Three different faceplate means that three different possible option of sound output. So let's just have a closer look. Okay, in order to talk about sound, we have to talk about the faceplate itself because it does influence, huge influence over the output. So the one that I have here, which is the stock one, the black metal gun metallic type, this is the one named as reference faceplate. And the kind of output which I am hearing from this reference faceplate is somewhere between something which I would consider as being analytical and musical. Okay, with the 4 balanced amateur inside, one thing that you can be sure of, if you are familiar with balanced amateur sound tuning, and this is definitely traditional balanced amateur sort of sound tuning. So what I'm trying to say here is that it does offer the kind of balanced amateur timbre, which is kind of a bit metallic, okay, overall, and even at the most softest, the most delicate part of the sound frequency, especially when it comes to the upper frequency, I am still hearing a bit of that metallic tint to the sound itself. But how strong or how worried should we be when it comes to that? Let me just bring back this subject of balanced amateur. I am a long time user of Atmostic ER4SR, and this is another very popular professional balanced amateur monitoring IEM, which has already been started since 1991. Yes, correct. 33 years ago. And this is the third iteration of Atmostic ER4SR. Okay. This thing is super suitable for monitoring, but perhaps not so suitable for casual listening because it is highly analytical and not musical. So, when we go back to this NE4, with the reference sound tuning here, using the same 4 Knowles balance amateur inside, it is pretty much similar in many ways to Atmostic AR4SR, but imagine you multiply it by 4. But the good thing about this is that it offers kind of a bit more of balance. I can actually use this for listening to enjoyment of music. Okay, let's just talk about the way it presents the 3 dynamic range, anywhere from lower frequency, mid-range to the upper frequency. I already noted earlier, the upper frequency is kind of a bit metallic, but it also means that the way it presents the macro detail or even the micro detail is very resolved. Okay, the resolution is quite good. The crispness of the way it handles the transient speed with the upper frequency is the kind of thing that you want if you want to examine details. Okay, so you're gonna get a lot of detail from this NE4. But if timbre is what you are, let's say, a priority to you, then I'm just gonna repeat again, kind of a bit metallic when it comes to timbre with the upper frequency. But the good thing about it is that the mid-range is super transparent and uncolored. Okay, uncolored means that there's no hint of boosting, there's no hint of reduction, there's no hint of warm, there's no hint of drying when it comes to the mid-range. It is definitely the kind of accuracy which I would expect from studio monitors, okay? So which means that regardless of female vocal, male vocal, any type of male and female vocal, what you're gonna hear is the intended mixing of the recorded output, okay? And it also depends on what type of source that you use. If you use something which is transparent, then you're gonna hear transparent output for the mid-range. When it comes to the lower frequency, thankfully it is not as dead flat as this Atmostic ER4SR, okay? What I'm trying to say is that there's a boosting, okay? It is not exactly neutral. I can feel that there's a prominent boosting in the mid-bass section, especially, and all the way to the sub-bass. So I get a bit more of sub-bass and mid-bass from this NE4, especially with this black one, okay? And now, let's just switch on to the next faceplate, the red one here, designated as pop, okay? And as the name implies, this is where everything totally changed. I will just simply say this. If you love V sound curve or even W sound curve, then this is super colored, okay? Super colored meant that whichever that I have mentioned to you earlier on, when it comes to transparency and neutrality, is all gone now. Okay, this thing suddenly becomes super bassy and super energetic with the upper frequency. So you're gonna get a strong V sound curve and perhaps a bit more of boosting in the mid range as well, which means that it behaves more like a W sound curve right now. Is this just simply very bassy to a point that I only use it once because I don't like highly colored output. The mid bass is just simply overwhelming, okay? The kind of gung gung gung, the punch, the impact. This is balanced amateur kind of bass that we are talking about. Very crispy, very fast, and it does not offer that kind of smoothness which you can expect from a very well-tuned dynamic driver bass. So if you love bass, electronic music kind of bass, okay, then this red faceplate may work for you if you listen to that type of music. So moving on to the next one, which is something considered as transparent. As the name implies, this is the flattest sounding of all of them. I already mentioned to you that this is already transparent with the black faceplate. But what you're gonna get if you use this green or blue faceplate, transparent one, then literally, again, I'm gonna bring back this NE4 will be transformed into this Etimotic ER4SR. Super flat, okay? No coloration. Transparent means transparent. Transparent means accuracy. You want to hear the kind of sound without any hint of boosting, okay? It would also make the sound itself super flat. Not suitable for enjoyment. So you might be asking, when do I want to use this green transparent faceplate? This is usable for people who do mixing, okay? Post-production kind of professional work. For example, okay, after you record something and you want to do a bit of mixing, adjustment to the sound itself before you do, mastering, okay, you would want to have accuracy towards the sound. You don't care about timbre anymore. You just want to analyze the sound frequency. So you use this, okay, in order to examine those sound so that you can adjust it properly. Being transparent, it is not exactly suitable for music listening. Perhaps you can still use it for classical music, which does not need any kind of coloration or certain type of technical jazz. But for most other music, it will be sounding a bit too dry and a bit more, kind of a bit, metallic, even stronger metallic theme when compared with this black faceplate. On top of the three faceplate which I have mentioned earlier, NF Audio will also be releasing another one for existing user of NE4, which is named here as Explorer faceplate. So this offer kind of a bit slightly different tuning, somewhere to bridge the gap between this black and this transparent. Everything taken into account after playing quite a lot of time with this NE4 here, and this is how it looked like when rated and compared against the rest of the competition in ND Audiovox ranking system. It scores a respectable 64 out of 100, and if you look at the sound element there, it scores really well with Pratt, it scores really well with transient speed, but it does suffer a bit on the timbre there, tonality, due to that metallic tint which I am hearing from the 4 balanced amateur, and it is pretty much equal when it comes to the 3 dynamic range, all at 3, which is an indication of a good performance, but not exactly stellar, but it does offer quite a bit of strength when it comes to technicalities. As you can see there, it scores quite good with transparency, it scores quite good with macro details, and it scores really well with resolution and imaging. Okay, soundstage and spatial imaging is also quite impressive. I have been able to use this NE4 even for gaming. So if I were to compare it with the rest of the competition in the market right now, I would even say that perhaps it is quite comparable to Moondrop Blessing 3. Okay, but then again, I would not use Moondrop Blessing 3 for monitoring because there's a bit of coloration there, and this one is a bit more transparent than Blessing 3. But the two of them is something which I would consider as highly technical IEM. And so does, if I were to compare it with the upper echelon with even more expensive TOTL. It is even pretty much tuned in the same way to Campfire Solaris SH version 2023. So if you are looking for something which is highly technical, this NF Audio NE4 would definitely suit the bill.